Welcome to another episode of Thoughts from the Crawl Space. Today we are going to be talking about your air conditioner. So, you know what? I think we might be finally out of freezing temperatures here in northern Indiana. And about as quick as we get out of that, we have sweltering temperatures. I think the temperatures this week are going to be in the mid 80s, and many people want air conditioning that time of year. So picture the first 90-degree day of the year. You walk over to the thermostat, you drop it to 72 and wait, and an hour later, it still reads 78. Your AC is running, it's just not winning. Today, we're going to make sure that that is not you this summer. So how your air conditioner actually works. Let's start there. Most Indiana homes run what we call a split system. A split system essentially is when you have one part of the air conditioner system outside and one part of it inside. The alternative to that would be a package unit where both are in one location. You would typically only see that on commercial properties. There are some residential that have that setup, but it's a little unusual to see that. So you have the condenser on the outside. The evaporator coil sits on the inside. The evaporator coil is also called the A coil, and it gets that name basically just because of the shape. You don't see this normally. If you do see it, that's a problem because it should be sealed inside the plenum. But in the event that it is apart or you're getting run replaced or whatever, you look at it from the side, it essentially has the shape of an A. That's how it gets the name A coil. Evaporator coil is the more common name for it, and it sits on or inside the furnace indoors. And the refrigerant lines connect the two. So you got your outside unit, you got your inside unit. So a little tip here to be just as bold as you can be is the air conditioner does not, quote, make cold air. All right. It moves heat out of the house. In fact, one thing we do, and we'll get to it in a minute, and what home inspectors do to actually check the air conditioning is hold your hand above the air conditioning outside while it's running. And what you should see, what you should feel, but you should see the fan running, but you should feel hot air coming out of there. Not real hot, but warm enough that you can tell it's taking heat from somewhere. And that's exactly right. It's taking heat from your house. So that's what this system does. It essentially just moves heat out of the house. The refrigerant in the lines absorbs the heat inside and releases it outside. The engineering for these type of systems is remarkably simple, yet remarkably hard to understand and explain if you want to get down to it. A few more parts involved in this. So you got your condenser and compressor outside. You got the evaporator coil inside. The blower motor, which is usually, if you have a normally installed furnace, the blower is on the bottom and it's blowing air up. And so what's happening is this A coil is getting cold as it is removing the heat out of the house, and the blower blows cold air over it. Voila, you've got cold air. So that's a real clunky way to talk about it and explain it, but that's essentially what's going on in your air conditioning system. Some other systems that you're seeing more and more. It's what we call a mini split. And that's where you have essentially just a condenser outside, and then you have a head unit that would be up on a wall. This is ductless. And so it's using the same principles, but in the event you add something on or you say, hey, my upstairs doesn't get cold enough with my normal air conditioning system, I need to add some supplemental cooling and or heat. These mini splits can be used either way, heating and cooling or both. So a mini split system is another way that house can be cooled. Another thing that you'll see, and this is not as common in most houses, are heat pumps. A mini split essentially is a heat pump, but I'm talking about a geothermal. Geothermal heat pump uses water to extracts heat out of the ground and uses it to help in heating the home. And then it just reverses that cycle when you're cooling the home. So all kinds of different options for heating and cooling your home. Today, we're specifically talking about air conditioning because we want your house to be cool and comfortable when you want it to be that way this summer. Let me share a quick story about an air conditioner that I'm going to have to share it for my own house. And our air conditioner was not working very well. It was laboring. It was only 4 or 5 years old. We had it replaced about 6, 7 years ago. And I could not figure out what the problem was. And I pulled it apart, and there was about an inch of lint and hair and junk on the entire fins all the way around it. And we'll talk a little bit later about cleaning it and how to do that. But this is going to significantly reduce the ability of this unit to cool efficiently. It makes it harder on the compressor, makes it harder on the whole system. So make sure you're cleaning your air conditioner on a regular basis, and we'll explain how to do that. So what does a home inspector check? Well, number one thing I check on a home inspection on the air conditioner is the data plate. The data plate is going to give you the age, the model, and the capacity. Capacity means the cooling ability. All right. The age is always located in the serial number, or it has a specific space that says this AC was manufactured at blank. And so the serial number, you kind of have to have a little bit of experience to know where to look, but generally it's going to be in the first two or the second two numbers in the serial number. Sometimes it's at the very end of the serial number. In some cases, I believe it's with a York brand, sometimes they're hidden in the middle of the number. Sometimes it can be every other number, like the second and fourth digit, or even the first and third. So a lot of different ways that manufacturers use to put the date of manufacture on there, but that's something that's really important as we go through and we inspect the air conditioning system. How old is this thing? Because buyers want to know right up front, what is my expectation on lifespan for this? And so the starting point for that is the date. And so we're going to look at the age. The model number gives the tonnage. Now the tonnage is, again, basically goes to capacity. Now inspectors don't get real detailed on this. We're gonna make a very vague evaluation of the tonnage on this. In other words, we don't do load capacity to determine if this air conditioner is sized perfectly for this house or not, right? That's beyond what we do. Determining the load capacity and sizing it for a house depends on a variety of factors, including orientation to the south, okay, where you're going to get a lot of sun. How many windows you have in the house, how many stories you have, what's the level of insulation in the walls and the ceiling. All those things play a factor in determining what size of air conditioner you need. But we're going to look at it, and in the model number, there's a number that's roughly divisible by 12. You might see a number 24. You might see 48. You might see 30. It's like, wait a minute, divisible by 12? Yeah, 2.5. So you're going to divide that number by 12 to get your ton rating. So if you have 36 in the model number, divided by 12, that's 3. It's a 3-ton unit. Now, what does a ton mean? Well, it's based on British thermal units and what it can actually cool in general. And this is a generalization, but a ton is capable of cooling approximately 800 to 1,000 square feet. So if you have a 2,000 square foot house, it's not unusual to have a 2-ton unit. All right. Now, what we might be on the lookout for is, let's say you have maybe 1,500 square foot house and somebody slapped a 4-ton unit there. Well, a 4-ton unit is going to be capable of cooling, 4 to 5,000 square feet. And is that a bad thing? When you got a smaller house, it's definitely going to cool it. No problem there. But what you can have is you can have almost too much cooling, and this is why that's bad. When an air conditioner kicks on, it does 2 things. Number 1, it cools the house. Number 2, it dehumidifies the house. If you have a unit that is oversized for your home, it's going to kick on. It's going to blast it with cold until the thermostat reading registers, okay, I got enough cold. I don't need any more. Shut down. But it won't give it enough time to dehumidify the air. And so you're going to get a lot of cold, and then it's going to shut off. And it's going to shut off, turn on again, and then it's going to shut off. And none of those times are you getting really good dehumidification. And so a couple of things happen there. Number 1, your humidity factor is going to still be relatively high in the house, even though it's summer and it's cooling. Number 2, your air conditioning is turning on, off, on, off. And that's what ultimately kills an air conditioner is the electrical components turning on and off. So it's actually better to have an air conditioner that is just slightly undersized than one that would be oversized. If it's slightly undersized, it's going to kick on and it's going to take longer to get to that cold temperature you want, but it's also dehumidifying the air the whole time. And so it's actually better if your air conditioner is running for longer periods of time in between cycles instead of on off, similar to a well system. So that's one thing. That's why we're looking for the age and model and capacity. Another thing we check on that is the temperature split. The temperature split for an air conditioner is simply what is the temperature of the air coming out of the unit? In other words, after the air goes across the A coil compared to the temperature before it goes into the unit, into the blower motor. All right. So supply air, return air. We're going to take a temperature probe and check the air coming out of both of those. And we want to see a difference between those two of between 14 and 22 degrees. To narrow that down a little more, ideal would be more like 15 to 20. But we give it a little leeway just because a degree here or two there doesn't matter a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. It's more about, is it cooling? And so we're going to put a probe in both areas. And let's say the air coming out the top is 52 degrees and the air coming in the side would be 70. Your return air would be 70. That's a difference of 18 degrees. That tells us in general that it's likely this unit is cooling properly and there's no adjustments needed. Now, if we find that we have a temperature split that is less than 14, let's say it's 10. We only have a 10-degree difference and it's just a kind of a normal 80-degree day. That tells us something's not quite right. We'll get into some of the problems a little bit later, but that's an indicator that it's not working quite right. On the flip side, if we're using our temperature probes and we get a difference of maybe 25 degrees, that tells us something's not quite right here. It's cooling actually more than it should. Sometimes we've got cooling out of right above the A coil in the 30s, maybe 39 degrees coming out of there. What that can mean sometimes is simply that your blower motor is dirty and it's turning slower. So it takes longer for the air to cross the A coil and it's actually cooling it more than it should. So all of those are just indicators that there's a little problem, and that's why we're checking that temperature split. We also take the extra step at Gold Key, and we take thermal cameras or probes to the registers throughout the house, each level, and we're checking to see what the temperature is coming out of each of the registers. And it should be relatively close. Now, you'll have variations through a house between main level and upper level and one end of the house to the other end of the house. That's just normal, especially if the ductwork is under a slab or something. But we want to check that just to see that there's no extreme irregularities, such as you have 51 degrees coming out of the register on this end of the house and you have 73 coming out on the other end of the house. All right. Because that can indicate we could have a blockage in the line. We could have a line that's kinked. Who knows what's happened under that slab or what has been shoved into the ductwork over the years or what's going on. We found building materials after new construction that are still clogging up these things and creating irregularities in the airflow. Another thing we're checking is the clearance around the outdoor unit. Just like you, it needs to breathe. We want to see vegetation away from this unit at least a couple of feet. You can plant small bushes, you can plant small trees. Whatever you plant is okay, but keep it a couple feet away. We don't want it against the air conditioner, and we don't want it impeding airflow when it kicks on or while it's running. So you need to have that clearance. Another thing inspectors are checking are the refrigerant lines. The refrigerant line, there's two of them. You have a larger one called the suction line and the smaller one. The larger line should be insulated end to end, because if you don't, this will sweat. It's condensation. If it's outdoor unit, if it's outside, it's going to just sweat and be inefficient and drop moisture right there, which attracts insects. If it's inside, going right up to the plenum, it should be insulated tight up against. And if it's not, it'll drip. And then the worst case scenario, it drips down into the furnace. It can damage the circuit board and it could drip on the gas line and create rust and corrosion. So that refrigerant line, the larger line, needs to be insulated from end to end. And we frequently see a maintenance item of that not being done. It's shrunk, it's damaged, something chewed on it, it's split, it's wore out, whatever. A simple fix, but something that's really important. Another issue that is crucial for your air conditioner is an electrical disconnect. An electrical disconnect is the power source for that air conditioner, and this is required to be within a line of sight, generally no more than 6 feet away from the air conditioning unit. This can't just be a breaker inside, this needs to be outside. Well, why is this? Well, if a technician comes to work on it, he needs to have total control over the power on that unit. So there's no problems with injury or getting electrocuted or the unit kicking on because somebody turns a breaker on that they saw was off or whatever. He needs to have total control of that, and that's electrical disconnect is usually just a pull-out breaker or fuse that he can just plop right back in there when he is done. So we're definitely looking for that. It's pretty rare nowadays to see one without it, but occasionally you are surprised. Another item we're going to check on this air conditioning unit is more on the inside part of this, and that's the condensate drain. The condensate drain, when you are dehumidifying the air, like we just talked about, that water that comes out of the air has to go somewhere. And it goes back into the unit and it drains out the condensate drain, right? And so this condensate drain generally is probably a 3/4 inch PVC pipe that comes off of the unit. And it usually has an elbow or two, goes down, it goes into a drain. It can go into a sump pump. It can go into a mechanical pump and then get pumped up and away, depending on if you're on a slab or you don't have a drain down there or something like that. But the condensate drain, if that blocks up, you're going to have water running on your floor. If that blocks up, frequently it'll shut down your unit. So make sure that condensate drain stays clear. Make sure you clean that out. It should have a trap in the line, especially if it's going to a main waste pipe, just so you can't get sewer gas back in through your unit and smell it throughout the house. So here's one thing that we do not do is we cannot run the air conditioner in cold weather. There are some folks that say you can do that, and they choose to do so. And there is a little value in knowing, hey, does this unit at least come on? It's 45 degrees outside. It may come on, but generally there are oils in the compressor that are kind of congealed. And when it's cold, they just don't want to move very well. And so you risk damaging the unit if you turn it on when you have that kind of situation. And we don't want to risk that. And there's not a lot you could tell anyhow. If it's 45 degrees outside, we're going to probably hesitate to use this, run the air conditioner until it's at least upper 50s. Sometimes it varies a little bit. If the sun's shining right on it, and it's a 50-degree day and the sun's right on it, we may run that thing. But we want to make sure that it's actually performing under a load. So in other words, we could check it at 55 degrees. And we can say, yeah, it's running, the house is getting cooler, but we're not really checking it in the sense of what's it going to do when it's 80 degrees outside? What's it going to do when it's 85 and 80% humidity? That's under a significantly different load. So there's things we can check, especially when it's in cooler weather, but definitely we want to maximize what we do, and that's by checking it in warmer weather. So if you're buying a house and it's in the winter, it's just one of the unfortunate realities. We're not going to be able to check the air conditioner for proper function. Now, we're going to look at it. We're going to make sure it's clean. We're going to make sure it has a disconnect. We're going to make sure the condensation line is good. We're going to make sure the filter dryer line is in good shape. We're going to make sure a lot of things are good. We just can't operate it. So there's where you would refer to the seller's disclosure to get more information on that. So how about a few warning signs that your unit is in trouble? If you notice this, pay attention. If it runs constantly but never reaches the set temperature. We've turned them on inspections before, and it'll run for 2.5 hours, and it won't take it up. It won't take the temperature down 5 degrees. We got a problem. What is it exactly? We're not really called to diagnose the problem there, but it could be a lack of refrigerant. It could be extremely undersized, but that's something that would be a problem. If you notice this, pay attention. Warm or weak air at the vents. Again, why is the air warm coming out of vents when we have the air conditioner on? Why is there a weak flow? Is it related to the blower motor? Is a ductwork blocked? Or is a duct blocked? All those things could come into play. What about ice on the refrigerant line or the indoor coil? You're probably not going to see it on the indoor coil because it's covered. But if you go outside and this has been running and you got a big old ball of ice right there on the refrigerant lines, you got a problem. All right. It sounds counterintuitive, but ice usually means low refrigerant or an airflow problem. And that just means it's not working right. So if it's running and running and running and not cooling, go take a look at it outside. If there's a big ball of ice on there or you see it forming along the refrigerant lines, turn that thing off, call a technician. We got a problem. What about water around the furnace or a stain on the ceiling below an indoor coil? Especially if you have a furnace on the second level, you should have a drain pan under it to catch things like this, but you may not. But if you have water around the furnace, we talked a little bit ago about condensation. If it can't drain, if the condensation line gets blocked and your condensation can't get out, it's got to go somewhere. And so it's going to find a way out, and you'll like to see a pool or a puddle of it around the floor of your furnace area. So what if you notice new noises, grinding, buzzing, or rattling? None of those are good. It should be a nice, smooth sound. And if you hear a fan rattling or squealing or shaking, excessive vibration, we have a problem. And so you want to get this all checked out if you have any of those things. What about the unit short cycling? That means it's on, then it's off. And it's on, then it's off. We talked before about how that can happen just if the filter's dirty or it's oversized. One of those two things is generally going to do it. Mostly you're going to have a short cycling if it's a furnace, if the furnace is running and not the air conditioner, but the filter can affect both functions on that. So another thing that you might notice that would be a problem is a sudden spike in your electric bill with no change in habits. All right. This indicates that you have an issue with the efficiency. It's using more electricity than it should, and you'll want to get that taken care of as soon as possible. So some of the common root causes of all this: a dirty filter, a dirty condensation coil, low refrigerant from a leak, and just an aging compressor or a unit that was the wrong size from day one. So let's talk quickly about repair or replace. It's the refrigerant question. All right. Older air conditioners came with R22. It was called Freon. Still available today, but it's been phased out. It costs a lot more to get it. It's now expensive when the system needs a recharge. Pricing will vary by location, so check with a local HVAC company if you truly need this. Newer systems use R410, and even that is being phased out to newer kinds. And so here's the takeaway. If your system is old enough to need R22 and you have a refrigerant leak, or you have the need for more refrigerant in any way, for any reason, usually that's going to be a big repair. You may consider just replacing the unit. All right. And so it's not ideal. It was all based on environmentalists and all that jazz. So whatever you believe about that, that's why it was put in place. Generally, if you need major R22 upgrades or put in, you're going to be better off getting a new air conditioner. So the age of all this, the central AC generally lasts, 15 to 20 years, sometimes longer with good maintenance. We see them 30 to 40 years old sometime. It all honestly depends a lot on how much the homeowner runs it over the course of the year. Our cooling system in Indiana is not exactly 8 months a year. All right. It's more like maybe 3 to 4 months. And maybe some people even shrink it down to 2 months. And so if you're only running a unit 2 months a year compared to someone that runs it 5 months a year, his chances are it's going to go longer. And so all those factor in. But when you can tell that an air conditioner just looks beat up, it looks damaged. The fins outside have been peed on by a dog or hit by rocks, or they're just covered in dirt and grime. It looks like an abused air conditioner. It's most likely time to replace that thing. So let's finish with this. An action list. Number 1, change the air filter and check it monthly. You already knew that for your furnace. Well, it matters here too. There's still air going through it. Number 2, clear 2 feet of space around the outdoor unit. Make sure there's no vegetation up against it. Number 3, gently rinse the outdoor coil fins with a hose. Power it off first. You can take it apart in many cases. And if you have a thicker coil, like I do, you want to try to spray from the inside out so it pushes it away from the coil and down and out. If you spray it outside in, it can actually jam some of that lint and stuff deep into the coil or the fins, which makes the problem worse. So if you don't feel comfortable doing this, call an HVAC tech and have them come do it. Number 4, pour a cup of water through the condensate drain to test it first. Let's pour some water in there. Usually it has an open end for air. Pour that in there, and if it doesn't go anywhere, you know you got a drain leak, or not a leak, but a clog that you need to clean out first before you get rolling. Number 5, schedule a professional tune-up before the first heat wave, not during it. Do you know what HVAC companies do when there's a heat wave and they get deluged with calls? They raise their prices, which is what most companies would do in that kind of situation because they're in such high demand. So get it done now before a major heat wave hits. And number 6, if your system is over 12 to 15 years old, start getting replacement quotes now. Again, buying an air conditioner in the winter, you're probably going to get a better deal than if you have to buy it when it's 90 degrees outside and yours just quit and everybody else needs one as well. So if you're buying a home this summer, or if you currently live in a home, the age and condition of the AC is something we flag on every inspection. If you want a clear-eyed look before you're committed, or you want to sleep in peace at night knowing the condition your air conditioner is in, that's exactly what we do at Gold Key. Reach out at goldkeyinspect.com, call 260-463-6558, and we'd be glad to give you any advice, direct you to an HVAC company, or come out and inspect your unit along with the house and just give you peace of mind about what the equipment is doing and what you have to look forward to and what condition it might be in. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a great day, and most of all, enjoy the summer.